There you go.
There we go. Hello, everybody. We are now, this is our Friday, January 22nd episode of Between Two Teachers. And we're still in a pandemic. And so we move forward. We got a new president, thank goodness.
Yes, sir.
And so we're here for you. My name is Consuelo Lara.
I'm Madeline Cronenberg, and we are greeting you, as always, from the ancient lands of the Chochenyo Karkin Ohlone people, who were here for many thousands of years before us. And we're so happy that more and more organizations and public meetings are opening with a land acknowledgement like this to all the community, the original community members. So we want to salute everybody who's doing it now. It's a really important thing to do. We are here in the land of, this is our first episode with a new president and our Oakland-born female African-American, Indian-American vice president. It's a big day, big change for us. We're very, very excited at the opportunities to moving forward. So that's our big national news. But another interesting thing is, as they put together the Department of Education, they did pick somebody from California to be the number 2. Not Mr. Thurman, not Tony Thurman, but the superintendent from San Diego, Cindy Martin. And Cindy Martin had been on a lot of different boards. Cindy Martin, I think, is a great choice. She was an urban superintendent. She had been a teacher and a public school principal. And she's done incredible things in San Diego. I think she's been there for 7 years, which maybe 5 or 7 years. But she's had a good run in San Diego, and they wanted to keep her. They certainly didn't want her to leave, but she will be a really strong force for good. She had been on Governor Newsom's charter committee, and she was representing school districts. And she did a very good job because she really was one of the leaders who said San Diego couldn't have any more charters.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
All right. So Cindy Martin is going to Washington.
Okay, great. That's great.
So that's a big improvement over Betsy DeVos. I mean,
no,
who's gone, right?
Yeah.
And then for the coronavirus, there are so many things. California is in the surge now, although it may just be starting to plateau, but we are, totally locked down and looking for what we can do to get to our next steps to coming back and opening up. And the big step is the vaccine, right? Which you and I will both be taking literally on the same day. We're on the same vaccine schedule in another week, a week from Monday.
Yes.
So that's a very exciting thing. And the fact that the vaccines are here and that they're being rolled out is a really, really important thing. That's something our teacher here, this teacher, she didn't have a vaccine.
No, they didn't.
No, she had to wait for herd immunity.
Yeah.
She had to wait for it to go through the whole community.
For a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some places, there are some communities within the state of California that are vaccinating all of their teachers.
Okay.
It is happening up in Northern California, where the schools had stayed open because they had a very low incidence. Right. But they are also, for some reason, the first ones that are vaccinating everybody. So that has begun to happen, but it is just not being done universally at all. It's not been a universal thing. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I did want to say there are some places that are doing it. And there was an article about that on EdSource. Okay. The state has given new guidance for reopening. The major education organizations have written a letter to the governor about saying that they can't possibly afford to reopen under the rules that he has put forward. Okay. So AXA, the Superintendents, the Administrators Association, the School Board Association, CSBA, CASBO, the Business Officers Association, and the State Superintendents Association, and the county superintendents, our county school boards members association, all wrote a letter saying there is no way that the plan that the governor has in place can work. So that's it's gonna be interesting to see what his response is to that, because that, as far as I can see, there hasn't been a response to the letter. And part of what they're saying is, you have to give us money.
Yeah.
Right? We need money for PPE, we need money for cleaning, we need money to do all of these things. You can't just give and say, well, take it out of your budget. No, it shouldn't come out of Prop 98 money, which is the money that we use to pay for education in California. It needs to be extra money to accommodate all this extra work.
Right. And all of those documents or those criteria, those have to be flexible, because it's like every week there's a new thing that comes out. Okay, now we have to adjust it. And whatever your requirements for a reopening, you got to be able to adjust, because
Right. I mean, the truth is, the testing was really important when we didn't have a vaccine.
Exactly.
Once you have a vaccine, you don't have to worry about the testing as much, right? You need to focus on the vaccine.
Yes.
And this particular, the document that the governor came up with was all about testing.
See, got to change it, got to revise
it. Yeah. And there needs to be even the state had a whole thing on a COVID equity task force that came up with some very strong equity guidelines around who would be tested, and also about who was going to get the vaccine.
Yeah.
But they're very complicated, and they were too complicated to be carried out well, to the extent that people didn't know who to give it to next. It had all of these tiers, this whole system, and that's one of the things that caused some vaccine to be wasted.
Yeah, because they were confused. What do they do next? That's too bad. That's bad.
So that's one of the reasons now, even though they had this whole task force, they're putting aside what that task force came up with. Because in the end, they had to make it simpler. And that's why it came down to people over 65.
Yeah.
Because we all know who we are, and we can prove who we are.
That's clear.
Right? Yeah. It's clear. Right? And it wasn't that they didn't they put in tons of time to create this task force and this set of rules. It's just that sometimes you have to realize the rules have to be able to be applied.
Yep. That's it.
So that's, there's a lot going on with all of that, which is really a very interesting set of
things are changing every day.
They are changing every day. So tell us what's happening at the county.
Okay, so I want to share at the county office, a big thing. We had these SARC and SPSA, those site plans, and for some of the charter schools. So the county oversees about 8 charter schools. We've got Caliber, which is in Richmond.
Right, which was denied by the West Contra Costa Board.
Yeah, that's usually why they get to the county.
Yeah, right.
Because, and the county, besides, they know better than a district that has to, then deal with that charter school. But anyway, Caliber, Richmond, Clayton Valley is in Concord. Contra Costa School of Performing Arts is in Walnut Creek. Golden Gate Community School in Pittsburgh, and that's the school when kids get expelled, or so that's what that one is. Invictus is in El Sobrante, Invictus Academy. Making Waves is in Richmond, we know about that one. And Summit, it says public schools, but they need to take that off of there, they're not public. Summit Public Schools is in El Cerrito. And so now they have, this is Manzanita as well, right? Manzanita is in Richmond. So these are the ones that we have provide oversight. So my thought is, now that I'm on the board, that I don't want us to just look at their petition and their performance once every 5 years. I want there to be ongoing checking in, and they need to report, how are you doing, in your turnover or in your
Right.
credentials or in your performance. I want to know that at least once a year, maybe even twice a year. I know as a public school, sure, we release data once a year, but sometimes we do a mid-year, semester kind of thing.
Sure.
Just so I want to make sure that they know there's ongoing oversight, not just once every 5 years, that there's going to be more oversight. And so I'm on that committee. And so that's one of the things I'm going to be looking forward to doing. And I'm sure I don't have
But
to.
one of the ways to get that is if you took the opportunity to have an authorizer appointee on their school board who would then just give a report to your committee every month as to what their board of education, what their governing board did on their, at their last meeting.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Right. That's one of the ways to do it, because when you watch their meetings, that's where you find out what's going on, really, from the standpoint of oversight, what their plans are and what their financials are and what the reports are that their governing board receives.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, so looking at that criteria, but all of that is coming up. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I want to talk about is there was a study session on the reopening of schools here for West Contra Costa. And I was very disappointed about that. It seemed like there was a lot of teacher bashing.
Yeah.
And teacher union bashing. And I was very upset about that. And I also was upset that there was not enough pushback on that. It all seemed to be slanted. And I did not hear much of a teacher voice there.
Yeah.
And
and I understand the teachers did ask to be able to have a voice, and it wasn't welcomed by the board president.
Denied. See, I'm just really disgusted with that. And since it started, they've had all of these extra special meetings, and as far as I could tell, they've been a big waste of time. I haven't seen anything productive, and I have not seen anything for the children. Not one thing. The hubs, all of those things that really the kids need. And so I don't know what they're doing. They're just wasting a lot of time, as far as I'm concerned.
They need to follow up. I mean, they got there were experts who shared out and brought information to that meeting, which I think everybody who watched it was a 5.5 hour meeting at the end.
Gosh. Oh
so the experts, when I went and looked up everything that the experts were talking about, there is a lot to discuss. There are reports going on. There's new data that's coming into the scientific arena now around different groups in the country that have worked on reopening their schools, and they could share out, but they should be sharing out with their teachers, sharing out to our teachers, right? There's this whole other approach to how you share it out. Exactly. And how everybody works together and partners as the team to make sure we're doing the best thing for our kids.
So we see this as a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential here. And here's some suggestions we have of what could happen that has happened in other places and been successful. And so to adapt it to here, we know a lot of things that we could see that could happen and needs to happen,
right,
for our children. And emphasizing the vaccinations and the masking. That's what we should have heard at that study and was not there. So we're going to just have all of these great ideas. I know that for me, my part at the county board, I think we need to have, like, our president had that executive order
right,
about masking. I mean, we could do a quick resolution countywide that we need to follow the president and have a mandate on masking in
Right.
Contra.
He had something called masking across America.
Wow.
We should have masking across Contra Costa County.
Across the county. Absolutely. And so our next meeting is February 10th. So I'm sure we could have, it's not have to be long, and something that I'd like to bring
No.
to the board. And then say we need each district to also pass this resolution. That's step one, and probably the most important one is the
Yes.
masking. So, and then there were some other things about the health department. Oh, the vaccine.
Well, the other thing is vaccinations, right? Right. You and I are both scheduled to be vaccinated, but one of the main things that's keeping our schools from opening is that our teachers aren't vaccinated, right? And so there are ways to do this. There certainly, the county has done things. They have mobile vaccination vans. There are, obviously there are sites. The schools themselves are sites that if there was a real concerted effort, every teacher in Contra Costa County could be vaccinated, just like they are in these other counties in California that have their schools open. So I think that really needs to be elevated. And at the meeting the other night, it was mentioned, a board member did ask one of the head of the health department, would you partner with us? But what we need is to move that forward from just this idea of partnering into what does that look like? It should look like vans going to school sites and vaccinating all our personnel.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what or a plan for that.
Yes.
Right. If, let's know that that's going to happen in 2 weeks or 3 or whenever it's going to happen, but have that as a goal and a plan. And that's what we need to encourage our county supervisors. So they meet every Tuesday at 9:00 on Zoom, right? So anybody who's interested can attend that meeting, or everybody has a county supervisor. For us, it's Mr. Joya, right? And Mr. Joya attended that meeting the other night. He was there.
Okay.
He was there. So it's not like he's not aware of the situation, right? But Mr. Joya needs to be, it needs to be shared out with him that we need to be very proactive in having our teachers vaccinated.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
So,
and if there, whatever the hiccups are in doing that, then share that out too. But right now, in terms of the public, we're not hearing anything about it. And what happens then is the public is enormously frustrated because it looks like nothing is happening.
Yeah. And we got to speak up about that. And there's been a lot of limitations. The board is limiting all that interaction, 20 minutes. So for public comment. So the public's being shut out. I feel like teachers are being shut out. Personally, that's what I see. And it's wrong. And that needs to change. So people need to speak up and say, wait a minute, this is public education. And this board is supposed to represent all of us, not just one person. So we all have to start speaking up about this. I mean, this is like, I really liked President Biden said, this is war. This is a war against this virus. And we need to act like this, I just.
And we can win. We have strategies now that we know what to do. In the beginning, we didn't know what to do. I mean, and that's just, we just have to recognize that. We need to honor the fact that we've gone through an unbelievably hellish time. We've lost over 400,000 of our fellow citizens, but we do know more about it now. And we have people who've given us the weapons, who've created the vaccines. We understand more about masking and how incredibly important that is. And that some of the other strategies that we were thinking were important before maybe are not as important as it turns out.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just recognize the science.
And if anybody is pitting teachers against parents, unions against the district, I mean, then you are not serving children. You are self-serving.
That's
your
right.
power trip or whatever. But
That's
if
right.
you are pitting, if you are creating that,
we are all on the same side.
We need
We
to
are.
all be doing the partnerships, working together because and pushing this whole thing, unity. We need to
Right,
have that unity, all this
right,
working together at the same, we're on the same side.
right.
We're all on the
So
same.
that is our call to action
Yes,
this week. And this is a big one because we can actually, there, this is not just us joining with bigger and larger groups. We're just saying everybody has to find a way to make the case with our county that we have our teachers and our whole school community vaccinated, so that each one of our school districts are then in a position where they can seriously look at the next steps for them in going back into the classrooms.
absolutely, absolutely. Vaccination, masking. We've got to
That's it.
demand, we got to demand it.
Those are
All
the two big things. Those are the two big takeaways from that meeting the other night. And they sort of got lost
that's
in
okay.
just in the drama of how the meeting played out.
Good
Right.
word.
And this is in no way undermining all the work the teachers did to create their MOU, which I totally honor and believe was done with the greatest of thought and in an effort to protect everybody,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
But they need to be vaccinated. Being vaccinated puts you in a different place altogether.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there is a solution. We have a solution. We got to all work for it.
Have a solution. So I've linked to, if you go to the links here, you can see the reports that were brought up the other day. I have a link to the meeting. If you want to spend 5.5 hours watching it, you can do that. It was actually very interesting. And for all of us who are consumed with all things COVID, I mean, it does give you a little moment in time here around where we are with education and bringing our students back right now.
Okay.
I think what was I going to say? Oh, I was going to do, there is a privatization. I have a link here for when we're talking about the charter schools, which we haven't talked about much today, but the only thing I did post was there's a link now to the groups, the very far right groups who funded the riots at the Capitol.
Wow.
Many of them are the same as the funding behind our billionaire charter school folks.
Really? Oh my gosh.
So you can read it. I just posted it. It's called Follow the Money, Cash for the Coup. And when you look at Cash for the Coup, if you go back and look at, who are the billionaire backers, it's a right-wing effort.
Yep. Follow the money.
Right. And it's something that's really against the idea of public policy and public and pro privatization.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's clear. Well,
Right. So I just was fascinated when I saw it. I thought, well, I should share that out. There you go. There you go.
Good.
The other thing is there's also a letter. So here's what the teachers are doing. There is this whole going back to school thing is so complicated and people are so emotional over it and desperate to have their kids be back in classrooms. There's something called AB 10, Assembly Bill 10, which is requiring that schools be back on, everybody be back on March 1st.
Yeah.
That's an arbitrary thing. I understand it's important to them, but it's not solving the problem. We solve the problem by giving them a way to go back to be safe, not just making a law and saying you have to go back. Yeah. And that's what AB 10 is. So there is certainly an effort, and I already signed up and support this to reject AB 10. AB 10 is not the answer.
Yeah.
It doesn't help our children.
No. Okay.
Right. So there's that. There's one other thing. I'm just going to throw this out. Oakland Unified, our friend Mr. Hutchison, has a resolution for reparations for African American students.
Oh, okay.
And I think maybe we won't talk about it today because I didn't get a copy of it, but there is a website for it. And I think it really is something that, especially next month is Black History Month, although we don't want to just do it during Black History Month, but
Right.
it is a time to look at it. And I know that we've interviewed Mr. Hutchison. He's a fascinating man. He's now on the Oakland Unified School Board, and I think we should all look at the reparations resolution. That was something that's very appropriate to bring to Contra Costa County and to every district in Contra Costa County.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we do have, I announced this resolution condemning the violence and the sedition. So we do
Right.
have that one also that's going to come up. But this sounds very similar to that.
Yeah, it is. And it's just a way to say these students deserve, there needs to be extra funding, separate and more funding that is looked upon as, in fact, reparations for slavery.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. And that's part, that's part of the whole discussion around having an anti-racist community.
It is. It is. People talk about healing, but before you get to healing, you've got to acknowledge what you've done. You got to make amends. You got to come up, be about change. And then once you've got those, then you can start healing. We've got a lot of work.
Right. You have to do the work. And so this is a really important first step. And they are big leaders in Oakland. And the first time I saw that, I said, that's exactly, we need to bring that here. And maybe we can bring it to there are other places too, the Issues Committee. There's a lot of other places to bring reparations to.
Good idea. Great.
So that's here. And then for the shout out, I wanted to give a shout out to this incredible star of the inauguration, Amanda Gorman.
I agree. She's the one.
She's the one.
Yeah.
She was amazing.
I thought she was like a teenager when I saw her. I said, oh, she's 22 and Harvard grad. And oh my goodness, she's just really something. So
she was really something. So we're going to be hearing a lot about her in the future. We've only just met her. We'll be hearing about her for years and years and years to come. But she made her mark at the inauguration. So good. To Miss Gorman.
All right.
That's me. Do you have a shout out?
No, I can't beat that one. That's
okay.
She's the one for sure.
She is the one.
Yeah.
She is the one. And then a chuckle from Carlos.
Yes, we do. So we didn't do one last week. We could do.
We needed two, right? We didn't do one.
Okay, so I got two here. So do you know where the president keeps his razor?
No. Where does the president keep his razor?
In the cabinet. Okay, here's another.
That's number one. That's for last week. And then for this week.
Here's this week. What were they going to play at the inauguration if the Republicans had won?
I don't know. What were they going to play if the Republicans had won?
Trumpets. Trumpets.
Carlos never, ever disappoints us.
Oh,
okay. Good. Till next week. Call your supervisor.
Yes. Please.
Call your supervisor.
See you next week.